Welcome back to Feminine Fortune. Today is the first episode in a series called The Principles of Feminine Selling, where I'm going to dive deeper into the main principles of how to sell the feminine way, no matter what type of sales you're in. So today's principle is that everything is energy. So I'll be talking about what that means and how to apply this to your own sales. So everything is energy. Everything is energy. Everything is energy. If you have come to any of my trainings, you're going to hear me say this at least 5 times because it's so important. So let me just make this really real for a second. Have you ever walked into a room and experienced that super awkward feeling where it's like 2 people were just fighting or having a hard conversation and then they get quiet and you can literally feel the electricity and tension in the air? Like no one even said anything, but you feel it. That's energy. Or have you ever gone to buy something from someone and even though the product looks good and everything that they said sounded good and it's everything that you wanted, but something felt kind of off about the person or the situation. So you chose not to move forward. But then later you found out that something crazy, like the person was a scam or so, just something totally off, even not something that big, but oh, I'm really glad I didn't move forward with that. Maybe that's a little bit dramatic, but you could feel it, like a gut feeling, energy. Or the opposite, where it's you didn't totally understand. I've had this before, where you didn't totally understand what you were buying from somebody, but you also didn't really care because the person just had such good energy and you just wanted to be in their world. Energy. So the first thing I want to talk about here to help you understand why this happens so you can not just understand it, but use it and leverage it for yourself is the law of vibration. So this was a term coined in the late 1800s, but it was made mainstream by Bob Proctor recently. And it says that everything in the universe is made up of energy that vibrates at different frequencies. This means that every thought and emotion and action that we take also has vibrational frequencies. So when it comes to feminine selling, this is why it's not just about the words that we say or the actions we take. This is why you can get the best strategy or the best script in the world from one of the other sales gurus out there and it still doesn't work for you. It's because you also need to consider the energy that you're bringing to the interaction. So energy comes from the thoughts we have, the beliefs that we carry, our expectations, even our feelings and experience of just how our day is going. And when a person is in a low vibration energy, like fear or desperation, or even because of some unconscious beliefs that they're carrying, this can all be felt by another person. And yes, it can and will affect sales results. But when a person is in a high vibration energy, such as love and faith and service and conviction and knowing, this also can be felt by another person. And yes, this also affects sales. And it reminds me of way back in my Hong Kong days when I lived there, when I was a grad student, and I first learned and started practicing these principles then. And there was a specific turning point for me when I understood this and my life started taking a very different direction. When I, in the first few months of moving to Hong Kong, it was and I know that this happens to a lot of expats, people who live in Westerners who live in foreign countries, there's just this feeling of, I don't belong. You haven't found your place yet. I went into, for months, a very deep depression. I actually almost wanted to come back home and just give up and do something else. Fortunately, I had a great support network and they were stay, be somebody who finishes what you start, just give it another couple of months. And so I'm okay, I'm going to push through this. I'm going to keep going. And thank God for persistent people who want to sell you on something, right? Because a friend of mine kept inviting me to this yoga studio. And at the time, I only made $20,000 a year on my studentship. That was like my funding, which when you live in a city like Hong Kong, that's not very much money. It definitely wasn't enough money for the particular yoga studio that she was inviting me to. And she kept inviting me and I kept saying no. And thank God for her persistence, because she kept inviting me. And I finally said yes, because she was very persistent. And I went and I just was like overcome with this feeling. I was in the practice, I was practicing yoga, and I just like had this feeling of like, like coming home, and just, it was what I'd been seeking. I felt it was this vibrational feeling like we're talking about. I felt authentic. I felt peaceful. I felt a sense of love. I just felt this overall sense of well-being. Now, I don't practice yoga anymore. I don't even like preach to teach yoga anymore. Like I used to teach yoga. I don't do that anymore for a variety of reasons, which maybe I'll get into in another episode. But for now, what's really most important is my mindset changed. My mindset changed from this isn't working. I don't belong here. Like these were the beliefs I was having and the things I was telling myself. And then I think it's like a combination of like breathing and moving and really being around some great people. My mindset started to change, and my mindset changed to, like there's a whole other world of people in this city. Like there is another set of experiences I could be having. And it just like changed my thinking. Soon after that, I was discovered and invited to teach kids dance, which is another passion of mine. I got paid really well for it. And I got to do that on the side of my degree that I was earning. And it made me so happy every weekend to go and work with these kids and to choreograph and to dance with them and to like, I especially the older kids, I got to mentor them and support them and like teach and help them grow and evolve into being young, mature adults. And it was just like such a change in experiences. And it all started because my vibration shifted, my mindset shifted. You actually cannot attract a new situation, a new result, a new outcome in your life until you yourself are a vibrational match to it. And so because I changed from the inside out, I then was able to also attract like different people. And, like God flows through people, money flows through people, opportunities flow through people. And so if you want to be attracting a different type of person around you, even if it's a different type of friend or a different type of client or a different type of team member, you got to start thinking about, well, what is the vibration I'm sending out into the world? And like, what are my thoughts? What are my beliefs? Okay. Even just like you've heard me share on a couple of episodes about my friend Kath, who I met. She came into my life because I changed. She didn't come into my life randomly. She came in because I changed. So I'm going to get really like geeky sciencey with you for a second. So bear with me. Those of you who are geeky sciencey like me are going to love this. Those of you who aren't as much into that, bear with me, because what I'm about to share with you, if you let it in, is literally going to change your life. So there was an experiment done in 1801 called the double slit experiment, where there were two types of situations. Okay, let me explain this to you. By the way, if you're more of a visual learner like me, at some point you're going to want to go Google this and like watch videos on it, and it'll make a lot more sense. But basically, imagine there's like an electron particle shooter thing, and it shoots at this barrier, and the barrier has two holes, like slits, like two slits next to each other. And then on the other side of that barrier is a screen where the light particles that are fired at it leave an imprint. And so the imprint shows and indicates the behavior of the particles. So two types of things happened. So there were two situations. Particles were fired at this barrier, like they went through the two slits and they left an imprint, and they were either observed by a person or they were not observed by a person. Those were like the two conditions of the experiment. And here's what they discovered. This is so crazy. What they discovered was that when a person was watching and observing this happen and watch the particles get fired, the particles created two imprints, like two lines on the screen behind the barrier. And when the particles were not being observed by a person, they behaved completely differently. And they behaved like waves and created multiple bands of imprints on the screen instead of just two. The only difference in both situations was if a person was watching the particles or not. So again, if you're confused by what I just said, literally just go Google the double slit experiment and watch a video of it, and you'll get what I'm saying. Because here's the big moral of the story that you need to understand. Our observation and attention have a direct impact on the behavior of particles at the quantum level. And what this means is that our intention and our focus can influence the outcome of a situation, even at that microscopic, like quantum level. So just like the particles in the double slit experiment, our intention and our focus can influence how events unfold in our lives. And this is why setting a clear intention and focusing our energy on a clear desired outcome has such a powerful impact on your environment around you every single second, and you don't even fully realize it. So imagine what would happen in your environment and in your results if you did realize it. And if you intentionally chose the way you influenced your environment and you set your intention, okay? Our intentions have an impact on everything. But in the case of selling, which is obviously what we're talking about here, you can watch the power of your intention unfold in real time. And when our intention is aligned with our energy, we create an unbelievably powerful force that can help us achieve our goals. And this is called spiritual integrity. Okay, this is actually another principle of feminine selling, which I'll address in another podcast episode. So be on the lookout for that. But the thing that you really want to get here is that we don't just live in a world of like physical matter. We live in a world of energy, and everything is energy. Okay. And just like a personal story around this, this has nothing to do with selling, and it fully applies to selling. There was one time when I had to have a really hard conversation with someone, and I was so nervous about it. I mean, can you relate having a hard conversation that you need to have with someone and just being so nervous about it? So I had a hard conversation with someone that I knew I needed to have. I didn't really know what to say. I didn't really have the words, but I knew these principles, and I started to get clear on, okay, what do I want my intention? Like, what do I want the outcome of this conversation to be? What is my intention? And I'll tell you what. That conversation happened, and that intention carried me all the way through. Like, the exact right words came out of my mouth. They were saying things that I'm like, really? What? Like, it was the most beautiful, healing, connected conversation. It went so beautifully, like way better than I could have ever planned or expected or tried to script out. And what that was for me was a lesson in the power of intention, and actually more than that, trusting the power of intention and how that can actually apply every single moment of every single day, and taking the time to set intentions, not just for my day, but also for tasks and for conversations and for anything that's truly actually important to me. Okay. The next thing that I really want you to get is the importance of alignment. Okay. In order to sell in a feminine way, it is vital to be aligned. What I mean by that is aligned with your values, aligned with what's authentic for you, aligned with what it is to have integrity for you. Okay. So there are 3 types of integrity when it comes to selling, and I'll get into that in another episode. But what I really want you to start to think about here is that when we're in alignment, we're able to tap into our natural feminine energy. And it can come through, and it shows. This is the energy of being nurturing and intuitive and creative and fun and playful and receptive. This is about being magnetic. This energy is attractive to others because people can feel that it's authentic and that it's genuine. Okay. And when we try to sell in a way that's not in alignment, that's when sales gets really hard, because whether or not people consciously know what's happening for them, they can feel the lack of alignment in this space. So what I want to have you really consider is that some of your most important work that you get to do is not sending the emails, is not making the phone calls, is not like going live on your socials. Like if you want to sell the feminine way, some of the most important work that you can actually do is to take the time to check in with your alignment. And when we stay in alignment with our true selves, we can harness the power of our feminine energy and use it to attract customers, to magnetize sales. And what that, in my experience and what my clients have experienced with that, is that that's how sales can start to feel energizing and even fun and completely authentic. And then it's like you just want to do more and more and more and more and more. And it just amplifies from there. You know, so I want you to consider, like, if you do sales and you find yourself receiving objections, this is a principle you can apply to starting to receive fewer objections, or even to avoid objections. If you have trouble getting over objections, it often has to do with this piece of alignment. For example, I went through a period of time one summer where I was actually dealing with a lot of health challenges. Like my adrenals were burnt out, my cortisol was high. And at the same time, like, I'm still my ambitious, limitless lady self. And I didn't want to just like stop doing everything. And so I partnered with a friend of mine and we were going to run a mastermind together. She was responsible for like the promotions and the back end of things and all of like the admin. And I was just responsible for the selling. So we got to stay like in our own lanes of happy place. Sales is my happy place. However, I'm in this summer of like healing and recovering and just generally being really tired most of the day. I had like 2 good hours of energy in me, and that was it. And I was on the healing journey, and like I was getting better and better and better every day, you know, with kind of like some days up, some days down, but generally on the trajectory of better. So I knew by the time we like ran the mastermind, I'd be great. But like, even though I knew that intellectually, there was a part of my spirit and a part of my heart that was just kind of nervous about the time aspect of it. And gosh, would I have the energy to fulfill with these people? Will I have the time to fulfill on these people? If I'm only able to work 2 hours a day, will I be able to do it all? And so you can kind of start to see and hear in that, if I'm the one responsible for selling, and if that's a secret unconscious inner dialogue that's happening in my mind, and I'm talking to somebody, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that that is probably going to influence my sales. And guess what? It did. And I started to receive time objection after time objection after time objection. There was one day where I had 5 calls, and every single call in that day, I received a time objection. And I am connected enough to this type of, obviously, like I teach this, so I'm not immune to it, and I understand it. So I actually sent my friend a message and I said, hey, I just need to share with you, I just received 5 time objections in a row. I think it's me. I think I get to really like look at this and work on it and find out where this is coming from so that I can create a shift here, because otherwise I'm going to keep receiving the same objection. So I did some journaling, I did some introspection, and I realized what I just shared with you, which is, wow, I think I have a fear of not being able to fulfill because of time and because of energy and feeling tired. And so what I did, and I actually share this with you in another episode, so I'm not going to go into it right now, but I did my process on changing my mind. I did my process on restoring my own spiritual integrity of believing that, yes, I do have the energy. I do have the time. I am excited to receive these new mastermind clients and to serve them in excellence. So I did that work on myself, and I'm not going to go into that process right now, because like I said, I go into that in another episode, but I went through my process. I changed my mind. I felt totally differently by the time I finished my process. I had calls the following day, and you'll never believe what happened. / you probably are guessing exactly what happened, which is I had a call. She joined with no objections. She paid in full. And she was more excited than anyone I've ever spoken to in my entire life. She was like a fangirl. She was so excited to join our mastermind. Zero objections, paid in full. Let's go. That's the power of alignment. That's the power of your mind. That's the power of energy. Everything is energy. Okay. So again, the moral of the story with this principle of feminine selling is that everything is energy. Everything is energy. Okay. If this topic is as interesting as it is for me, I want you to send me a DM on my Instagram, Julie Serot, and I would love to share some book recommendations with you, some resources that have helped me dive deeper into the understanding that I now have of the science and the spirituality behind the truth. That is, energy is everything. And if you had an aha moment and we're like, OMG, I know exactly what she's talking about. And you talk about this stuff with your girlfriends and you're like, this is so validating. I want you to send them this episode so you ladies can compare notes. And if you're anything like me, it's just such a fun topic to discuss and go deeper on. And as always, if this episode made a difference for you, I do ask that you subscribe. It just makes such a difference. And I so appreciate you for it. Make sure to go follow me on the Instagrams and the Facebooks for all the behind the scenes of what I've got going on in life with me. And I will see you in the next episode of Feminine Fortune.